Hello everybody, you're welcome back again to the Reggae Appreciation Society. In the rich and colorful history of reggae music, there have been lots of interesting, shocking and sometimes hilarious events, but love triangles are mostly unheard of, with the story of Bob Marley, his wife Rita and girlfriend Sydney Breakspear one of the few exceptions. That's why I was quite surprised and tickled when I found out not long ago that one of the most talked about trilemmas or entanglements in the early 80s in Kingston was that between none other than Black Uhuru founder and reggae legend Don Carlos on one side, dancehall star Papa Kojak on the other, and his partner and fellow dancehall toaster Mama Liza right in the middle of it all. This love triangle reportedly led to tensions between both men vying for our hearts and eventually escalated into full-blown hostility that would culminate in a confrontation and all-out brawl in a popular nightclub in Kingston in 1983. When I found out about this story, I found it hard to believe, especially as Don Carlos has always been known to be a cool dude and a lover, not a fighter. But on second thoughts, when I remembered that this man grew up in Waterhouse in the 60s, it all began to make sense. But what was the story behind this whole thing? Let's take a look at why and how Don Carlos and his rival Papa Kojak fought over dancehall toaster Mama Liza. Now this tale begins 3 years earlier with the formation of one of the first dancehall duos, that was Papa Kojak and Mama Liza in 1979. Beverly Brown, aka Mama Liza, had been honing her skills at rugged sound system dances all over Kingston for a few years when she became friends with a more popular fast-rising DJ named Floyd Anthony Perch, aka Papa Kojak. Kojak had been recording for producer Joe Gibbs and had bagged a minor hit called Massacre. Kojak admired her talent and recognized her potential, and when he needed a female DJ to work with him on a duet called Hole in a Bucket and other female DJs' recordings couldn't make the cut, he sent for Mama Liza, whose own verses turned out excellent. Together they made the track Hole in a Bucket a major hit in Jamaica. Their chemistry was so good that they formed a duo called Papa Kojak and Liza in 1979 and went on to mash up the airwaves and sound system dances all over Jamaica. They were a great team, and in no time, their chemistry in the studio and stages soon crossed over into their personal lives, as they soon started a romantic relationship. She was a fearless tomboy and one of the very few ladies in Jamaica's gritty sound system scenes back then, and was always getting hit on by lots of male DJs at the dances. And Kojak, being a very possessive boyfriend, often got aggressive to keep guys away from his girl. By 1980, while Kojak and Liza were already household names on the island, Eugene Spencer, aka Don Carlos, was really struggling to find a breakthrough as a solo artist after leaving the first incarnation of Black Uhuru, which then consisted of Ducky Simpson, Don Carlos and Garth Dennis. Alongside his sidekick Ulrich Malcolm, aka Goldie, they were on the grind non-stop, putting in work at studio rehearsals and getting on the microphone at live shows whenever they could. It was during that period that Don Carlos became acquainted with Kojak and Liza. It's often said that in a room full of noisy men, a lady always goes for the most quiet and reserved one. And while I'm not sure how accurate this is, it certainly worked for Don Carlos in this case. Like most artists in the sound system circuits, Papa Kojak was outspoken and tough, while Don Carlos was slim, reserved and calm as ever. And Mama Liza soon took a liking to him that was so obvious that it made Kojak really angry. Their mutual admiration grew over time into a close friendship as they continually kept running into each other as Don Carlos and Gold's profile continued to rise. With the release of their debut album, Suffering, in that same year, a minor hit that didn't do so well in the charts, but set the stage for the next album in 1982's Day to Day Living, and the next one titled The Never Know Natty Dread Have Him Credentials. By then, the romance between Kojak and Liza was still going strong, and though then they had fewer hits in the charts, they were still among the top dancehall acts in Jamaica, and certainly among the hottest to watch at live shows. But 1982 would be the very year that Don Carlos and Gold would score their breakout hit with the release of their classic album Harvest Time, one of the great rich reggae albums of all time, with masterpiece cuts like title track Harvest Time, White Squall and Music Crave. That album was simply a smash and catapulted the then struggling Don Carlos into a superstar, leading into 1983. Here Mama Liza's friendship reportedly grew even stronger, and they would meet up even more frequently as they bumped into each other as he was making even more appearances in A-list clubs and dances like Kojak and Liza. And remember, I said Kojak was very jealous and possessive of his lady. He was already seething at his woman's obvious attraction to Don Carlos and vice versa, and reportedly confronted Don Carlos, and he was certain they were having an affair. Nothing changed, and in no time, the whole situation would lead to a bust-up. It all came to a head one night at a popular nightclub in West Kingston, where Kojak and Liza were billed to perform alongside other DJs. Also in the club that evening was Don Carlos, who came to enjoy the show as one of the revelers in the audience. Kojak noticed him and wasn't happy to see him there, and kept his lady close to him as other toasters performed their own sets. And when it was time to get on stage, the couple went up together, and Kojak took the microphone to do some of his own material before launching into the songs for their duets. And that particular night, Kojak was on fire, and the crowd was buzzing as he electrified the dance with his incredible flow, song after song, totally in the zone, so much so that he didn't notice his lady wasn't there when it was time to pass her the microphone. Totally bewildered, he passed the microphone to a different DJ to go on with the show while he went to look for Liza. After combing the entire venue, he was totally shocked to find her and Don Carlos slow dancing and grinding chest to chest in a warm embrace to the booming rubber beat, having a great time. Kojak flew into a jealous rage that caused them to break it up. Don Carlos reportedly tried to leave the scene, but Kojak, who was furious, grabbed him. In a split second, both men's face-off descended into an all-out brawl right there in the middle of the dance, and created a huge scene before people there broke it up before anyone could get seriously hurt. Kojak's friends who were there weren't surprised, as he'd always been very jealous and possessive of his lady, but that was the first time they had actually seen him get into a fight. But thank goodness, that matter was settled there and then, and the show continued, with the couple getting on stage to do their thing that began with their most popular hit, Hole in a Bucket. And after that night, I believe Don Carlos kept his distance from Mama Liza, and the couple's relationship grew even stronger as they went on to have 2 children together, and continued as a duo up until the end of the 1980s. But over time, their output and visibility would fade, while Don Carlos and Gold, on the other hand, would go on to a spectacular run right into the 1990s, after which Don Carlos would continue on a marvelous solo career after his friend and partner Goldie was left incapacitated after a gunshot wound that he sustained in America. Knowing how tough and volatile Kingston streets could be, especially in those days, I'm really glad that clash between both men didn't escalate beyond that evening's brawl, and we can just look back 4 decades later and laugh at what was a love triangle that ended with a hilarious fight in a nightclub. So there you have it. Thank you for watching this video today. Please leave a like, subscribe, and until next time, God bless.